The floodgates of announcements of cards for the Madness of the Darkmoon Faire have opened, so we get to look at 5 new legendaries, including both for Warrior, alongside some callback cards and more secret synergies. Some of these are going to be really fun to build around.
Huh, this should be interesting.
Like last time, we're going to get right into it, so if you'd like a breakdown of our review criteria, check out the description below, or review number 1 linked up there. There's also a link to quick reviews with puns in the description below for those of you without much time. For everyone else, let's get into the main reviews. Let's start this review off strong with another god from this expansion, but this time it's not an old god, it's E.T.C, God of Metal. This 2-mana 1/4 warrior legendary comes with an effect that does 2 damage to the enemy hero after a friendly minion with rush attacks. It sounds like this works with cards that gain rush too, so a deck that uses animated broomstick can get excellent value from him even without running a ton of rush minions. A single copy of either Dr. Krasnov or Kargath Bladefist are the only ones who have made it into any of the top 3 tier decks at the moment, so E.T.C wouldn't make the cut right now. However, with a payoff card like this, I could see Galakrond Warrior making a comeback to pair the Scion of Ruined Dragons with this, which could allow E.T.C to deal 12 damage to the face in a single turn while playing both Scions, as long as there are targets for rush minions. Restless Mummy may make a comeback as well. I think there's enough potential here to include him in a decent tier 3 or maybe even a tier 2 deck in the upcoming meta. And this is the card that Playmaker Rush Warrior has been waiting for. We'll also build a deck to see how much damage we can deal in a single turn with this guy. The first thing that comes to mind is a swarm of desert hares diving in with help from Animated Broomstick. But that's only 18 damage to the face for 10 mana. But I'm betting we can probably figure out something even better. We'll see. Now, a rush minion that might dive onto the board alongside E.T.C is a spicy new dragon for warriors. Tent Trasher is a 5-mana 5/5 that costs 1 mana less for each friendly minion with a unique minion type. So if you've got a Clockwork Goblin mech out there alongside the Captain Greenskin Pirate that just buffed your Wrench Caliper, Tent Trasher can swoop onto the board for 3 mana instead of 5. Honestly, if this goes down to 4 mana for a 5/5 with Rush, it feels powerful enough. But with help from N'Zoth, God of the Deep, we might see Tent Trasher hit the board for 0 mana on occasion. Now, the example I just mentioned would fit a Bomb Warrior, but current builds of Bomb Warrior don't run either of those cards. However, the Skipper Bomb Warrior runs a few cheap pirates, and Deathwing Mad Aspect or one of the boom bots from Blastmaster Boom might stick around for a turn to discount this guy. So it might get down to 3 or 4 decently often, but I'm not sure that would be quite enough to earn it a slot in the deck at the moment, as the deck isn't necessarily looking to win with minions on the board. The other meta decks wouldn't consider it, so I'm gonna have to say this just barely fails the meta now benchmark. However, alongside N'Zoth, God of the Deep, and the other minion Menagerie support cards Warrior's getting, I think there is a real chance for a tempo or big minion Menagerie deck coming together, and I think this would make the cut, as it's still a great 4-mana 5/5, and any additional counts are just icing on the cake. As for meme decks, we'll be building a full minion Menagerie N'Zoth deck that would love to have this. And we may figure out a convoluted combo with this and Dragon Breeder to do once we discount it to 1 or 0 mana. I'm not exactly sure what we'll do yet, but there's a lot of room to experiment with a card like this, so it's certainly meme deck worthy. So if you were thinking that a 5/5 discounted Tent Trasher just feels too weak, what if we could buff it up a couple of times before rushing it in? Well, with help from Ringmaster's Baton, we can. Ringmaster's Baton is a 2-mana 1/3 that gives a mech, dragon, and pirate +1/+1 after your hero attacks. The base weapon itself is super weak, and it takes several turns to get the value out of this, but since you can play it really early on if you've got it in hand, it doesn't feel bad. You probably take the first swing with this, even if you've only got 1 minion to get buffed in hand, but it'll feel great to see the minions growing in your hand. When we looked at Don't Feed the Animals, we mentioned that hand buff cards have a pretty weak history in Hearthstone. But this time, the effect is bundled into a weapon that can be buffed up, or beefed up with Galakrond Invokes, and doesn't cost too much to get it going. While none of the current meta decks have the minion diversity to make this worth running, I think there's a real chance of a strong Menagerie style of warrior developing, even if they do just run mechs, dragons, and pirates. I'm giving this a hopeful meta later, and this will go great into our Menagerie meme deck. We may also try buffing this up as much as possible to see how big we can make our minions. And there are taunts of each of these minion types, even pirate. So perhaps we see if Tomb Warden likes getting buffs from things other than just Armadillo? This is gonna be interesting. Now, one of the challenges to get value out of cards buffing specific minion types is actually having those minions in hand. Well, a Ringmaster's Baton means there must be a Ringmaster, and this guy is here to help overcome that challenge. Ringmaster Whatley is the second legendary for warriors. He's a 5-mana 3/5 with a battle cry to draw a mech, dragon, and pirate from your deck. Whatley is a cheaper curator, but he actually draws cards that work well for warrior. He may not have taunt, but he can join the board much earlier or slot into a later turn much easier. Of course, none of the current meta decks run mechs, and I'm not sure if he would make the cut in any current decks just to draw a pirate and a dragon, especially since Deathwing Mad Aspect is the only dragon. It may still be worth running him, but I'm gonna say Whatley doesn't make the cut right now. However, he's certainly amazing for a Menagerie Warrior deck. And even if Menagerie Warrior doesn't actually survive the new meta, drawing 3 cards relatively cheaply with at least a mediocre body is definitely worth building around and including in a deck or two. I'm confident to say that he will be in a new meta deck. And yes, he'll also join Menagerie meme decks, as well as draw us the minions we want to buff with Armadillo in a Taunt Warrior deck. I doubt we run Youthful Brewmaster just to get a second hit from his battlecry, but it's something to consider. Of course, N'Zoth isn't satisfied with getting value from warriors alone. He's also looking to get value from paladins. The last card we reviewed for paladins summoned a nice elemental for them, and this time we get to see a really nice mech, Carousel Gryphon. This 5-mana mech starts out as a 5/5 with Divine Shield, but it can be corrupted by playing a 6-mana or higher card while in hand to become an 8/8 taunt with Divine Shield. Libram of Hope is no longer the only way to get a cheap 8/8 Divine Shield taunt onto the board. And wow, if working with N'Zoth wasn't enough, they may even ally themselves with Ysharj the Defiler too. Are we going to see corrupted paladins soon? It's doubtful we would see any right now because none of the meta decks run many cards that stay expensive enough to corrupt Carousel Gryphon, and a 5-mana 5/5 with Divine Shield is too weak to run in place of the other busted things Paladin is doing right now. However, this card alongside Hammer of the Naru we looked at last time, which activates this by the way, makes me think that we'll see an N'Zoth Paladin, and perhaps even a build that runs Ysharj. With this, Hammer of the Naru, Murgurgle, and a decent dragon, I think the archetype has a chance of making it into the meta. But even if it didn't, it could join our full Menagerie Paladin deck. But this also has Divine Shield. Alongside the next couple cards we're going to look at, there's a lot of fuel available to build a wacky Blood Knight deck with this and Ysharj. Let's try it. So as we mentioned, Carousel Gryphon has Divine Shield, and the other corrupt card for Paladins summons a bunch of Silverhand recruits. Well, Balloon Merchant has a battle cry to give all your Silverhand recruits +1 attack and Divine Shield. He does all this for 4 mana with a 3/3 body. If you've got a single Silverhand recruit sitting around from earlier, Balloon Merchant might feel okay to drop on turn 4. But if you've played a non-corrupted Day at the Fair on turn 3 and 2 or 3 of them stuck, Balloon Merchant will feel great. And on turn 7, a corrupted Day at the Fair into this will put some real pressure on your opponent. The current meta decks don't generate enough Silverhand recruits for this to make sense, but alongside Day at the Fair, Balloon Merchant might just have a real chance. I'd like to see one more Silverhand Recruit synergy card to guarantee it a spot, but I think there might just be enough here to see a token aggro Paladin deck burst back into the meta. In the worst case, this can buff a hero power minion on turn 6, but there's enough upside available for Balloon Merchant that I think he can find a home in the new meta, just barely overturning my earlier verdict on Day at the Fair. These are both just barely meta viable. And oh, how big we will make Blood Knight with this and a corrupted Day at the Fair. Also, our Sword of Justice, Brazen Zealot, Day at the Fair meme deck running Righteous Cause is looking a bit stronger now. The new legendary for Paladins is also getting in on the Divine Shield craze, but only if you're pure. High Exarch Yrel is an 8 mana 7/5 with a battle cry to gain Rush, Lifesteal, Taunt, and Divine Shield if your deck has no neutral minions. So yeah, Zilliax has returned, but only for Paladins and only if they have no neutral minions in deck. But wow, the healing potential for Paladins has gone up another notch. Libram of Hope will no longer be the main game flip card for pure Paladins. So would High Exarch Yrel make the best deck in the game at the moment better? Yes. She would bring unity, precision, perfection to the archetype. And yeah, there's no question about whether she sees play once the set comes out. I'm thinking this may be the time to go for that golden portrait in Paladin. We just need to spice her up with some memes to make it interesting. And while Youthful Brewmaster is a neutral card, it'd still be interesting to toss them in a deck together for additional value from her. Sadly, I doubt she'll stick around on board long enough, most of the time, for us to drop Sathravar on her, and there's no way to discount him or Yrel in Standard, but we can still try it. I'm sure we'll figure out some unusual ways to use Yrel in meme decks. High Exarch Yrel isn't the only minion reminding us of powerful minions from the past. Rogues are getting Ticketmaster, a 3 mana 4/3 with a death rattle to shuffle 3 tickets into your deck that summon a 3/3 plush bear when drawn. This is very similar to Faldorai Strider from Kobolds and Catacombs that saw a fair bit of play. At 3 mana, it does everything the Strider did with comparable stats to mana cost, but has an additional attack with a death rattle instead of a battle cry. The death rattle just slows the shuffle down by a turn, so that probably won't make much of a difference. However, summoning 3/3s instead of 4/4s is a pretty big difference. Still, this has a ton of value packed into an aggressively statted 3-drop. Galakrond Rogue could potentially play this, but there's a danger of the tickets eating the discount from Galakrond, Wondrous Wand, or even messing with Lorekeeper Polkout's order, so it would be a bit awkward. However, Weapon Rogue cycles through their deck remarkably quickly, so I could see replacing Infiltrator Lillian in some versions of the deck to generate more onboard pressure to close out the game quickly. Ticketmaster might just barely make the cut at the moment. And I was initially going to say that his position in the new meta is precarious as well, but the Rogue Legendary we'll look at in a moment gives me hope that he can join the new meta fairly confidently. I don't know that anyone will run Stowaway to yank the plush bears onto the board and cycle through the deck faster, but it's possible. Ticketmaster still isn't a shoo-in for the new meta, but I think he has a good chance. So this teddy bear is the thing of nightmares, but just for the flavor of it, I want to make a deck called Hug Them to Death, designed to summon board after board of plush bears. It won't be a good deck, but we're gonna hug opponents to death. So what's the legendary for rogues that gives Ticketmaster a fighting chance in the new meta? Grand Empress Shek'zara is a 6 mana 5/7 with a battlecry to discover a card in your deck and draw all copies of it. Without building a deck with her in mind, this is just a decent sized minion with a battlecry to draw a card or two from your deck, hopefully one you'd like. While not a bad effect for these stats, she wouldn't make the cut in current decks. However, when you've built a deck that can make good use of her, Grand Empress Shek'zara has potential to become remarkably impactful. While copying a strong card like Jandis Barov with Togwaggle's Scheme and hopefully getting one of the copies as a discover option might be enough to earn her a slot in the new meta, the real power for her comes with cards like Tickets from the Ticketmaster. Since the Tickets are casts when drawn cards, they draw an additional card when pulled from your deck, meaning that if Shek'zara draws all 3 or 6 copies of the Tickets, you would expect to get 3 to 6 plush bears on the board and 3 to 6 cards in hand. I'm not sure how it'll work when a couple of the plush bears were back to back in the deck, but I'm guessing it'll work the same way as if you drew them naturally, meaning you'll get 1 or 2 fewer cards in hand. But that'll be something for us to test. Still, with this likely upside, I believe Shek'zara will earn a spot in the new meta. And in meme decks, she can get you up to 10 copies of a Togwaggle's Scheme target in the deck, meaning our dreams of massive immune weapons from our Dr. Krastenov's Scheme quest deck just got a lot more reliable. There are so many things we're going to do with Shek'zara. If you draw too many cards with Shek'zara, you could end up discarding some of them, but to use this next Warlock card, you're guaranteed to discard the lowest cost card in your hand. Wicked Whispers is a 1 mana spell to discard your lowest cost card and give your minions +1/+1. To get great value from this, we'll want to use it on a wide board, so it probably fits best in a zoo style of deck that can drop all the cards onto the board before using this. The ideal cards to discard with this would be Hand of Gul'dan to refill your hand, or Boneweb Egg, which may summon the 2/1 spiders before the buff goes off. I don't think that's been confirmed yet though. But it will feel bad when the first copy of this discards the second copy. As the only Warlock deck in the top 3 tiers at the moment is Galakrond Warlock, it's the only option for use in the current meta, and that's a bit of a puzzle. Galakrond Warlock does go wide fairly easily, but most of their low-cost cards are vital to surviving, cycling through the deck, or dealing a finishing blow to the opponent. But if discarding one of those cards in the mid to late game helps buff up 5 or so minions and push 5 extra damage, it may be worth running. As long as you've already played Zephyrus or have a cheaper card in hand, this in place of a Rain of Fire or even Acidic Swamp Ooze might help the deck a fair bit. Okay, it probably would be meta now. And in a more aggressive style of Galakrond Warlock or a Zoo Warlock running Boneweb Eggs, this could certainly see play. Whether those will be strong enough to survive in the new meta is a bit questionable, but we'll give this a hopeful meta later. However, other than getting some extra value from Boneweb Egg or cycling a bit with Hand of Gul'dan once your hand is empty or expensive, I don't see a way for this to inspire or enable any experimental or meme decks. With a card like this, there may be another discard synergy card or 2 from the set to turn this verdict around, but for now, Wicked Whispers doesn't get meme deck status. While the last card reduced the number of cards in hand, this next card will help Demon Hunters increase that number, at least for a moment. Stiltstepper is a 3 mana 4/1 with a battle cry to draw a card, and if you play that card this turn, your hero will get +4 attack this turn. This has a super aggressive stat line, but just like someone on stilts, he'll fall over with the slightest nudge. So the real value for this card is the card draw and bonus attack if you can play the card he draws. He's not bad in the late game, as you're likely to be able to play whatever you draw with him, but there'll be some risk if you play him on turn 4 or 5, even in a low curve deck like Aggro Demon Hunter. I don't play Demon Hunter enough to know if they'd be willing to let this guy sit in hand till turn 5 or 6 to almost guarantee value with him, but with so many 1 and 2 drops in the deck, and the fact that this draws a card and has at least a bit of a body that will do a lot of damage if it sticks behind a Bone Chewer Brawler, I think they may be willing to risk it. Meta now? And nothing else that's been released thus far looks to compete with this for a slot in Aggro Demon Hunter, and I doubt the deck will drop out of the top 3 tiers, so this remains a very questionable meta later as well. The only thing this has going for it in meme decks is that it has card draw. The damage doesn't really enable anything new, and we can't double the battle cry for insane value or burst potential. If this had a tribal tag or some synergy we could manipulate with it, it could join the memes, But right now, it's not a meme unless it's so terrible that it would be just a meme to play it. The next card will also be excellent for drawing cards. Rigged Fair Game is the new secret for mages to draw 3 cards if you didn't take any damage during your opponent's turn. As there are cards like Flame Ward and Ice Barrier that punish opponents for hitting your face, oh, and Vaporize, but nobody plays that, there's a good chance this will go off relatively quickly. And Mage is the class with freeze cards, so there will be ways to set this up if you really need the draw. As this is an excellent way to cycle through the deck, I could see any of the current meta decks replacing a popular card with Rigged Fair Game to help get to their late game or burn. And it'll be just as good in the new meta, except it'll be even better thanks to the next card we're going to look at. So this will be meta later too. And while Super Spell Damage Cram Session is pretty good at getting to Chef Nomi quickly, this could help that. But this is more likely to find a home in a full-fledged Secret Synergy meme deck with Apexis Smuggler and Cloud Prince. Either way, it'll be useful. And with the new secrets and secret generators coming for the set, mages have another nice payoff card for them. Occult Conjurer is a 4-mana 4/4 with a battle cry that if you control a secret, you'll summon a copy of her. Playing a vanilla 4-mana 4/4 would feel pretty bad, so Occult Conjurer will do a lot better in a deck with a number of secrets. Sadly, no minion mage is the only deck at the moment that runs multiple secrets. And well, you know, it's no minion mage, so she wouldn't see play. However, most decks are going to want to run Rigged Fair Game, and Ring Toss is likely to join a deck or two, so the new meta will be a friendlier environment for her, but I'm still not sure if she'll make the cut. 4 mana for 8/8 in stats is par for the course in small spell mage, and dropping this on turn 4 with the benefit from the battlecry will require having a secret for turn 3, meaning the deck would need to run a fair number of secrets to be reliable. So with the cards from this expansion, will the secret package be strong enough to make Secret Mage a meta deck? I want to say yes, and Ring Toss excites me about the potential, but it still feels like it needs another nudge to get there. Occult Conjurer is borderline not meta later. I want it to work, but I still don't think it does. However, we will make meme decks with the entire package for sure. Also, this synergizes with Khadgar and Power of Creation. This is a great reason to revisit Super Summoning Khadgar and see how much value we can get from him. Who knows? Perhaps the secrets will help us keep him alive an extra turn. It's possible. And last up is the new legendary from the class that has practically become a cult to me and many of my viewers, Priest. Their first legendary for this set is the Nameless One, a 4-mana 4/4 with a battlecry to choose a minion and become a 4/4 copy of it, and then silence the original. So all those decks running fun death rattles like Radogor or Scrapyard Colossus? Yeah, you may want to keep track of how many Galakron-generated minions your priest opponent has before playing them. So Spellbreaker is back with a vengeance, but just for priests. Of course, this would be counter to Res Priest's game plan unless they can steal one of your most awesome minions while neutering it. But most likely, they wouldn't run it. However, this is a perfect fit for Control Priest, so this would see play in the current meta, and it'll probably be an auto-include in any priest deck other than Res Priest that finds its way into the new meta as well. Since you don't know what this will transform into, and Raise Dead will bring back whatever it turned into, this is difficult to build around. All the minion copy cards are also focused on minions already on the board, so unless you're confident that you can steal a great minion from almost every opponent, which pretty much falls through against aggro decks, copying this with Gift of Luminance or something else doesn't really work. It's been a while since we last saw a legendary that didn't inspire or enable an experimental or meme deck, but Priest has managed to steal that too, it seems. And now for the quick reviews. Warriors just aren't ready for the raw power of E.T.C, God of Metal, in the current meta, but they will rush to include him in the new meta, and will be building some god tier meme decks with him. Tent Trasher is looking for more diverse decks than current meta decks, but it'll be happy to trash some opponents in the new meta, and Dragon Breeder is looking for the most broken way to raise its meme potential. No current decks can get a handle on Ringmaster's Baton, but Menagerie meta decks will love these buffs, and Menagerie Taunt Warrior can't wait to get their hands on this. Ringmaster Whatley would love to whip current warriors into shape, but he'll have to settle for new decks, including wacky Menagerie meme decks. Carousel Gryphon is too expensive for corruption in current meta decks, but it looks like N'Zoth and Y'Sharj have their eyes on Paladins with this in the new meta, and Blood Knight is looking forward to riding this with all the new Divine Shields to pop. Balloon Merchant wouldn't sell anything right now, but he may have a strong day at the fair soon, and Blood Knight is excited to buy his entire collection. High Exarch Yrel will bring unity, precision, perfection to every form of pure Paladin. Ticketmaster just barely scrounges up a ticket into meta decks, but meme deck players are looking forward to a plush bear army to hug opponents to death. While current decks might not know what to do with Grand Empress Shek'zara, Togwaggle's scheming with Ticketmaster to get her into the new meta, and a bunch of crazy meme decks. Galakrond the Wretched has learned how to discard some wicked whispers in meta decks, but there don't appear to be any whispers about experiments or memes. Stiltstepper might just find purpose in stepping over all the 1 and 2 drops in Aggro Demon Hunter, but someone cut the stilts off before he could join any meme decks. Mages would be happy to set up a rigged fair game in almost any meta or meme deck. Occult Conjurer is missing the secrets needed to summon anything in the current meta, is borderline doubtful to conjure anything in the new meta, but she's gonna be awesome in super secret summoning Khadgar's creations decks. The Nameless One will silence and steal its way into almost all meta decks, and while he'll silence the dreams of opposing meme deck players, it seems he's also stolen away his own ability to join a meme deck. And that's a wrap. We'll continue reviewing cards from the madness of the Darkmoon Faire, so the old gods expect that you'll like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And now we're back to normal. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Remember, you're awesome. Thank you for watching, and have an awesome day.